Sermon is titled Trust Your Journey. In 2014, Chris and I went to Peru as part of shamans who I had trained with a year or so earlier. Not too long before this trip, I was laid off from my job of 17 years. You set up trips like this months in advance to prepare and to budget. It's something you look forward to. But after I got laid off, we considered canceling it because it was a considerable outlay of funds. We went anyway, and we were glad we did. We traveled to the sacred valley of the Andes Mountains of South America and the home of the Incas near Cusco. It was a culmination of 3 flights to get there. The last one in a smallish craft where you get both an aisle and a window seat at the same time. The scenery below showed the beautiful swirls of the mountains and the valleys. We arrived in Cusco, and while waiting for the bus, there were street vendors of all kinds. We bought some cocoa leaves, which I knew would be used for ceremonies, but as we learned later, chewing cocoa leaves would help us adapt to the altitude. The trip was going to be about 12 days, and 5 of those were going to be hiking in the mountains. I remember our guide, Jose Luis, pointing to the range we would be going to, and it seemed so far away. The more we walked, the higher it got. The thinner air and upward slope were making it very difficult just to put 1 foot in front of the other. Sometimes we would see native women walking a steep slope with a baby and a large pack on their back, like it was nothing. How can they do that? On the trail, we were often at the back as younger ones trotted forward. Another guide, Doña Bernardina, would come back to check on us. We were determined not to be a burden, but she would go off the path and pick some leaves, and handing them to us would show us how to roll them between your hands to kind of break them up and inhale the vapors, the oils released. She had probably done this with many gringos before, I thought. The aromatherapy helped us take our mind off the struggle and appreciate the surrounding beauty of the mountains. We felt held by them, and we were often told, let the mountain carry you. They told us where we were headed, but we really only cared about when we were going to stop for a rest. And those are heavenly. We did our best, even hiking, even taking up their offer to ride a horse when it got too bad. Once we were so far behind, it got dark, and there were no trail lights. But the moon was full and beautiful. A guide did come back with flashlights. Eventually, we would get to the evening's campsite and pass out. We were pampered, even while out in the winter elements. So we left in June, but in the southern hemisphere, that's winter. The guide's helpers would lead a team of horses and donkeys way ahead of us to set up tents and cook the meals. Along the way were ceremonies, rituals, prayers, and offerings. This was all sacred ground, and we were honoring the spirits of the mountains. Condors were flying overhead at times, and in one Altamasiac high shaman ceremony, we met these spirits and got to talk to them. In another ceremony, we would go to a place to be alone with the mountain. During my time alone, I sat on a hill and was closer to a little mountain that I had not really noticed before. I sketched it. When I looked at it, I felt like it was sad. I called it Sad Mountain, and it told me it did not mind that. We talked about sadness. It felt like it was not great like the other mountains, but it served as a stepping stone. It had a purpose. We cannot all be great. At special sites, we made creations, stones called apuchetas, which held all our prayers. Sometimes the shapes appeared to be the same as the mountain nearby. At this point, we were at 15,000 feet. At night, the stars and the Milky Way were amazing. You could see the Pleiades clearly. These were called the Seven Sisters. According to the shamans, the Incas descended from star beings, which came from the Pleiades. After the camping, we hung out with Cusco and witnessed a fiesta where heavy statues of the Virgin Mary were carried through the streets to the church, each carried by 10 men, sweating and straining under the weight, and led by marching bands playing the same tune over and over to throngs of the crowd and people hanging from apartment windows and balconies overhead. To us, it was quite impressive. This was a journey of ours to be remembered, and each time I do, like just now, I see new meaning in it. And we were grateful to be able to take such a trip. While this one stood out for us, all journeys, whether they be to a place such as this or just getting through our lives here in the flat Midwest, are meaningful and have something to offer. If we take the time to look around, thank the spirits, and leave an offering. It was Ernest Hemingway who said, "It is good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey that matters in the end." It is good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey that matters in the end. What he is saying, in effect, is not to put too much emphasis on the destination, but to be mindful of the journey. If you are mindful of the journey, on the journey, destinations will take care of themselves. Destinations will come and go, and they may or may not live up to your expectations, but your journey there is uniquely yours. Confucius said that roads were meant for journeys, not destinations. Of those dozen or so fellow travelers with us on this trip, whom all experienced the same sights, sounds, trials, and tribulations along the way, each one of them will have a different experience and a different story to tell because of where they were before and the different paths that led us all to intersect at this one time in space. Obviously, life is a journey. I think we all know that metaphor pretty well. Every one of us weaves a different path through life, and whether that be straight or zigzag or even going in circles, it is personal and it is yours alone. And you have to trust yourself that it is okay, even if you may not like it at times. I like this quote from Jack Kerouac, who wrote on the road, "Our battered suitcases were piled on the sidewalk again. We had longer ways to go, but no matter, the road is life." Sometimes we go forward and sometimes we go backward. Sometimes we hit a detour and we go around. The choice is always ours to make. We can ask others for directions. We can even follow their path for a while, but ultimately paths will diverge and we will be left on our own and need some kind of compass or map to find our way to tread the path forward. Emerson has a saying this: "Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." This puts a lot of responsibility on us. This assumes that we have the moral compass to do this by ourselves. Most religions would say otherwise. Self-deception is very possible after all. And that is true. They would say we cannot trust ourselves to know which path to take. We need a God outside of us to do that. Buddha said something different. Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who has said it. Not even if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and common sense. Be a lamb unto yourself. As UUs, we look to our 7 principles. In this case, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and the right of conscience. And our 6 sources, which point to the transcending wonder, words and deeds of prophetic men and women, wisdom of the world's religion, Jewish and Christian teachings, humanist teachings, earth-centered teachings, and even direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures. All religions, including UUs, were started by men, regardless of their intentions. And they may all claim divine source or reason, but ultimately they are human productions, and any human endeavor is prone to bias and error. Nothing is perfect in this world, as much as we would like to think otherwise. Regardless of whom or what is pointing the way, the decision lies with us. No one can make us do anything unless we choose to do. As Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Hero's Journey, a book about the ultimate archetypal journey, says, if you can see your path laid out in front of you, step by step, it's not your path. Your own path you make with every step you take. That's why it's your path. I like to think that we have a higher power within, which if nourished and fed, does give us a means to know what is right and allow us to trust ourselves. To feed a higher power is to be aware and mindful of all there is along the journey. Looking forward to destination is fine, but if we never look around, we might just fall into a hole. I think if we are mindful of the journey and follow what we love and what makes us feel good, whatever that is, we can feel confident that we are being guided and can trust ourselves. But none of this means we have to go alone. While the choice is ours to make, we can always ask others for assistance and guidance. That is what we're here today. As was said in the opening words, together in reverence, to hold together that which cannot be seen, heard, or touched. And that is what makes this place here at the UUFD sacred. We are here for each other. Our journeys intersect, if only temporarily, to compare notes of the mountains we are crossing. So I want to ask, is there anyone here who would like to share a journey of their own? Me too. Please come up.
I'm Tom, and I've been either fortunate or unfortunate, depending how you look at it, to travel for my job quite a bit. And I think one of the most interesting places that surprised me that I traveled to was Vietnam. This was in 2019, and of course, my father was in the war there. And I looked around, I was in Hanoi, and I looked around at the surroundings, the people, the buildings, the society, and I said to myself, well, it looks like these people are doing okay. They seem happy, they're busy, Nothing was really falling apart. But obviously knowing that there is a very different government structure there. I had an opportunity to visit a kind of a war memorial, but it was a little bit flipped in how you think about it, because it was a Vietnamese war memorial for their struggle to become a communist nation and what they did to the US. It was a graveyard of broken war machines, helicopters, tanks, all sorts of things. Surface to air missiles, just in this big museum. And I remember visiting with a colleague whose father was actually his father was in World War II. I had a very emotional reaction to visiting that place that completely hit me from left field. And just remembering what my father would have thought of me standing in that spot. So just to say that travel, seeing the world, meeting different people can really change your perspective.
Thank you, Tom. Would anyone else like to share? Well, thank you. I do not know if we will ever go back to Peru. I would like to again, but I'm not sure we'd be able to handle it. The mountains really would have to carry us. Amen and blessed be.